What is the story, people? Welcome back to the YouTube, eventually. You can probably tell from the title of the video. I don't actually know what I'm going to title the video yet, but you'll probably be able to tell from the title what it's about. So this will be a kind of prep update where things lie at the minute, and obviously addressing the elephant probably in the title is moving to the assisted side of things. So obviously, as I said, been a while since I did a YouTube, probably 2 months now at this stage. Obviously I had great intentions of making them a regular thing, but then moved to Manchester at the end of June. It's been a hectic couple of weeks, obviously just trying to get settled, get comfortable here and get back into a routine, so it just allows me obviously to continue on with prep. But some things to cover as regards the prep and how that has been going in the last couple of weeks as well. To kind of take it back a little bit, pre-Manchester things were moving relatively well in terms of obviously rate of loss and things like that. Food was still in a good position, and basically once we had touched down in Manchester, I got back, obviously I never got off plan, but I got straight back to routine, things like that, established a fairly solid routine for myself, and just got back to doing what's necessary basically. And saw with that basically a complete halt in loss. Even though we had pulled food down relatively low compared to where we had finished the likes of the off season, obviously hit a pre-prep phase as well where we held food in a relative position just to maintain and tidy things up a little bit, but we were now pretty low. Like I was at a 50% reduction from peak off season food at this point, and we were only like 4 weeks in, and it saw a complete stall in weight loss, so obviously not good signs initially. So fast forward to, I believe, 2 weeks ago, Monday or Tuesday 2 weeks ago, we'd essentially gone the route of let's just zero carb it. Zero carb rest day, 50 carb training day, see what happens. I think the first day was a 50 carb training day. I think I lost about 0.8 of a pound, and then a zero carb rest day to follow, lost like 0.2. So at that stage there's very clearly something wrong here, there's something going on in the background. And I think it got to me so much mentally for the simple reason that the way I portrayed to people, if my meal had 80 grams of rice in it and the scale said 81, I was picking out that grain by grain, and I was being so pedantic with everything, the least stressed I've ever been, the most on top of my shit I've ever been, and that's been the case for well over a year now. And it was just eating me alive mentally, like at this stage, to the point where I legitimately had basically a meltdown the Sunday prior to us, 50 carb training day, zero carb rest day. My head just exploded with all these like existential things of like, what is the point? Should I even bother doing this, etc., etc. Had a bit of a meltdown, things like that. Had a chat with Emma, obviously, who has put up with so much of my shit over the last couple of weeks, and probably will put up with a lot more of my shit, but I'm forever thankful for her. That is for certain. Obviously had a chat with Ryan, a couple of people around me as well, and the next port of call was getting bloods done, because clearly there's something going on in the background. So sure enough, went on the Thursday, got the bloods done, got them back last Thursday or Friday I think. So kind of confirmed, I would say my worst fears, but I'm kind of glad that there was something wrong, if that makes sense, because again, as Ryan said, like if they had to come back normal, like where do you go from there? There's something seriously wrong beyond that again if they had came back normal. But I suppose thankfully is the right word, they didn't. So sure enough, got the bloods back, test 8 nanomole of test, which I believe the normal is at least a minimum of 10, but again obviously that differs from age to age, scenario to scenario, like just person dependent in general. To be honest with you, like for someone at 24, yes, I'm only 24 even though I look 30, at 24, more than looks after themselves, trains well, recovers well, etc., etc. There's nothing that I can specifically pinpoint that has caused that to happen. And when you think about normal ranges, obviously things in terms of bloods, what their idea of normal is a fairly wide range, but I think for someone at my age, like I said, in my position, realistically you'd look for that to be in at least the high teens, if not the low 20s, as far as I'm concerned. So it's an absolute anomaly as to what caused it. I really couldn't pinpoint it, And it got to the point where obviously the body had just adjusted to functioning like that, because realistically you look at the problems that come with low test in males, obviously being like, you know, just consistent tiredness, depression, etc., and how that kind of affects men. But obviously, just, I suppose like everyone had my down days here and there, but I was not overly down or extremely tired, so I suppose the body had just adjusted to functioning at that level, which is another feat in itself. But low test, estrogen wasn't even within normal range, it was way below, and some pretty poor indicators of thyroid function as well. So as I said, worst fears? Probably not. More so glad that we saw that, because obviously there was a course correction there in place that we could go with going forward. So leading into that and talking about the likes of, you know, the drug use, the assistance, etc., it basically came down to the point where you have to consider the fact that to correct those things naturally as it goes, it's going to mean pulling prep and not doing the prep. And it's the one thing in like my top 3 priorities this year, or not priorities, but rather my goals for this year, which I had outlined at the start of the year. Even before the start of the year, I remember doing a Q&A on Instagram last December, where I had said, someone had asked me my top 3 goals for 2022. It was to get out of my hometown, go full time with my online coaching, which I've done, and the last one was to step on stage. So I was fucked if I was going to pull the plug there and then. Obviously, the only other route to go at that stage is the assisted route, which leads me into that, obviously, and discussing the ins and outs of that. So the first thing I want to say on the topic of assistance, you know, steroid use, etc. This is not, you know, a decision I took lightly. It's definitely something that I spent a lot of time thinking about. To be honest with you, I've been thinking about it for a long time. I think it was something I was always going to do. My rationale was that I want to see, can I do a prep first before I go and do it? But it was quite clear to me from the outright that I am absolutely just all in on this. This is exactly what I want to do. It's where I want to be physically, obviously here as well, but just the road I want to take in terms of pursuing bodybuilding. So that is one thing that I would say. Above all else, this is, you know, relative to my goal, and it's not just a case of me saying, oh fuck it, I'm going to take steroids for the sake of taking steroids. That is definitely not what this is. Obviously, it wasn't a blind decision in that I understand what I'm getting myself into. You know, I spent a lot of time on education in the last couple of years, and spent a lot of time in the last year or so educating myself on, you know, AAS, etc., and the potential risks that come with it, and, you know, the, I suppose, safer route to take, but that is all kind of, again, relative to the situation. I am completely at peace with the decision that I've made, and that's just something that I want to clarify for anyone. This is not like a big mental gap where I wasn't sure if this was make or break, or this is exactly what I want to do. Like, I knew from the word go that this is what I want to do. Obviously not jumping on, just competing, bodybuilding in general. So I suppose getting to the juicy side of things, or what everyone would probably be interested in, is in terms of compound use. So from the outright, I will not be disclosing at any stage exact amounts of what I am using, because I simply don't want to encourage people to just do this either. That is one thing I have to be quite adamant about. But total androgen load at the minute is sitting at 500 milligrams. So the compounds that are making up that 500 milligrams are Test E, Mast E, and MPP. Then my pre-cardio in the mornings, we're doing T4, T3, and clenbuterol, that is. And then on pre-workout, or for pre-workout rather, we have Anavar in there as well, but that is split half and half on a non-training day, which is today. You know, that is subject to come out at some stage. Obviously the initial loading point, just kind of want to fill me up a little bit to that degree. So that kind of covers the ins and outs of obviously what's at play at the minute. Obviously completely subject to change in terms of loading, even compounds in play throughout the course of prep. It's a kind of needs must situation. I suppose in a realistic way you could say, you know, we're condensing my first year of use into a kind of an 18-week, 20-week block. Again, like, relative to my goal, I'm completely fine with that, and I understand the potential risks that come with it, but also how to be, you know, healthier about it. because let's be real, at the end of the day, it is unhealthy, but there's obviously a safer route to take, because I know it's been quite heavily preached nowadays, and especially with the likes of what's been going on in the bodybuilding industry this year. You know, you have to look at the likes of deaths and things like that. Obviously, I'm way out of range for the likes of that, but it's just obviously covering the relevant topic here, in that the risk to reward factor that comes with it. So I don't think I want to drag this on for too long, to be quite honest. I will probably wrap it up pretty shortly, but in terms of show dates, obviously the timeline has now changed. The original plan was 2 Bros Natural show at the end of October, so clearly you can't do that anymore. So we will now be doing the PCA First Timers on the 13th of November, I believe it's in Hull. And it's pretty much the last chance to get on stage this year. But as I said, I'll be damned if I pull the plug now at this stage, because I've invested so much into this over the course of the last year, and especially I feel like I've found myself, as dramatic as that sounds, over the last year, but I'm exactly where I need to be, and I know exactly where I want to be in terms of, you know, pursuing a bodybuilding career. You know, I'm not like saying pro card chasing or anything like that, but it remains to be seen, because I think one thing that has to be noted here, and this era of transparency with, you know, steroid use, etc., there will be a dramatic shift in body composition, but also muscle mass by the end of this prep. And it's not something that I want to portray as, you know, if you eat all your meals and do your cardio and lift your weights, like, you can do this in 16 weeks, because it is an unnatural transformation at the end of the day. So there is that part to play in it as well. And the last thing I want to do is put out this false persona where, like I said, you do X, Y, and Z and all of a sudden you look like this. There's a very finite group of individuals as naturals who will achieve things like that. Prime example being Mr. Jim Morrissey. You know, they're just born for things like this, genetically speaking, but you have to understand the air of like hard work that comes with that as well. It's like these people that just think you can be genetically blessed and all of a sudden you look at a weight and you grow. There has to be an air of hard work that comes with it. Clearly I'm not one of those naturally gifted individuals. I haven't the worst structure in the world, but I'm just not naturally cut out for it at the end of the day. Or I'm not in the most advantageous position naturally, is probably the best way to put it. So that is kind of the rationale there as well. As I said, relative to where I kind of want to be and where I'd like to be in a couple of years' time, it's just the next step as far as I'm concerned. I think that'll just about wrap it up there. I don't want to drag this out too long and get too deep and emotional and things like that. As big as obviously a decision this is, because it is a big decision at the end of the day, it's a lifelong decision. It's not something that you just do and stop all of a sudden. You know, there's has to be a game plan of how to get out of it at the end of the day, without completely fucking yourself up. So that is another point to take away. These people that think they're going to do one cycle and stop, well, no, you're not. Like, so, you know, don't do that either. But that covers everything I think I need to say in relation to the situation that it is. You know, some thoughts there and how things were going, and it's amazing how you can have this shift in mental balance. Like I said, 2 weeks ago, borderline pulling the plug anyway, because I just had a meltdown, to now being more focused than ever, because I feel like a weight has been lifted off. You know, a big weight was lifted off when the bloods came back, because I knew it was nothing that I was doing. But also now we have the likes of assistants in place, so I know as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, we will get to where I need to be. But yeah, that is going to wrap it up. So welcome back to the YouTube. I promise now that I am more settled, these will become a bit more regular again. We'll try and get a couple of day in the life, full day of eating. Well, maybe full day of eating would have a bit more of an interesting diet, because at the minute it consists of turkey, eggs, whey, yogurt and chicken. So I don't think anybody wants to see that, and a shit ton of veg. So I don't think anybody really wants to see a full day of eating like that, but we'll see how things go. So yeah, that is going to wrap it up. As I said, the YouTubes will be a bit more regular again once I'm fairly happy now with where we are, you know, settled routine wise. Probably a day in the life, some training footage, etc, etc. Obviously, given being in FLF now as well, a fantastic facility to show off on the YouTube, give people a feel of what it's like in there. But yeah, that is it. So if you enjoyed the video, do all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, share if you want. Appreciate the support as always, appreciate the support on the first video as well, as long ago as that was now. And I appreciate any support on this one as well. So that's going to wrap it up. I'll chat to you in the next one.